Hello there and welcome to today's virtual space here on LinkedIn Live. And we're going to listen a little bit more to the music that we're enjoying today with our DJ Virtual Space Hero. Here he is. Hello there and welcome everybody. It is fantastic because for this end of the year reflection of learning, I wanted to definitely have the DJ because, my virtual events, they always start with music or with the DJ or with the band or with my guitar player. So I have several artists working in my virtual Space Hero team. And thanks to all of you who were following my events and participating and for your feedback, because it's not only that music brings us all in a very good mood. It is also that we know research is showing that background music is connected to learning. So there is the so-called Mozart effect. Even though I know you could criticize that I'm not really using Mozart in my events, but that has another reason, even though it would really make sense, me being Austrian using Mozart. Well, I will think about that. Anyways, today I'm super excited because we have the DJ here with us, so the good mood is programmed, but not only because of our fantastic DJ virtual space here, it's also because I have, for the end of the year reflection of learning, I was able to gather together 3 global experts on learning transfer, on working out loud and virtual learning in general. So I'm really happy to bring them on stage with me in a second here. You know that a researcher, for me, looking into new ways of working and new ways of learning is of utmost importance. And as a practitioner, we all have been seeing that this year was quite a struggle, particularly if we look at learning, virtual learning, and also learning transfer of what was happening in the virtual space. And today, for the next 42 minutes of Knowledge Bite, we are going to discuss this. And I'm sorry, the DJ is going to leave us in between, but he will come back at the end. Yes, he will come back. We're going to discuss this topic about learning and what we can take from the learnings of this year also into the next year of 2021. And with that, I'm going to open the virtual doors. And today, I'm not starting with my female guest, but I'm starting with the one traveling the furthest, to say so. And I'm welcoming with me here on my stage, John Stapper, the creator of the method Working Out Loud. Hi, John.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. This is fun already. Thank you.
Fantastic, John. I think we should sort of bring also the other people on stage, right? So I think we move now a little bit closer to Europe, but still farther away from me. And I'm happy to welcome now Fergal Connolly on our stage, a learning transfer expert.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Barbara. Hi, John. Nice to meet everyone and great to be here.
Hi there. So we came from New York, we went to Dublin, and now we are going to move to Vienna, and we welcome on our stage Pari Namazi from Vienna Global Leaders. Hi there, Pari.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Barbara. Hi, DJ. John, Fergal. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much to everyone for joining me. And I already see we have comments floating in, and Sveta is connecting, saying, can't wait for this expert talk. What a panel. So expectations are high for today's virtual space here at LinkedIn Live. We have 4 guests here, which is amazing. And I think the DJ, he might leave us now a little bit for the talking, and we bring him back by the end, right? DJ, is that fine with you? Yeah, he seems slightly okay with it. That's fun. Great. Thank you very much, and see you later, DJ Virtual Space Hero. Fantastic. So thank you again to everyone for following my invitation, and that we also were able to find sort of one slot that fit all our schedule. And I also would love, so John, you were the first here on the stage, and I would love to start with you because working out loud is a very specific method that I became familiar with when I was attending conferences, new ways of working, new ways of learning, and there were your companies or companies who were using your method, they were sort of presenting their experiences. Could you maybe give us a short intro, one of the short intros that you can do about the principles of working out loud and how it connects to learning as well, please?
So the basic idea is that individuals come together in a small group, 4 or 5 people, and they pick an individual goal they care about. In an hour a week, over 12 weeks, they take small steps, and with practice over time in a psychologically safe space, they make progress toward their goal, and they learn a set of skills and habits that they can apply to any goal, including relationship building, using digital tools, and really how to take control of their reputation and shape it by making their work visible.
That is so amazing. And how did you come up with that? Because I was always wondering, I read on your webpage, and I know also from your TED Talks that you sort of have been working many years in companies, and that's how you developed the idea. But how did that come?
Well, your experience may be different, but back when I was in a big company, there were times when you felt like you were at the mercy of the next reorganization or budget cut or performance review, and certainly felt that there was more that you could offer, like more than you can do than just your job, but also that there were more people there that you could connect with. So those big 3 intrinsic motivators, a bit more control, confidence, and connection, I was looking for. I didn't use those words, but that was what I was hungry for. And that led me to a search for myself. And then once I had those feelings, how could I spread it to other people?
Fantastic. I think Fergal probably, if you think about that, what does it resonate with you? You are the learning transfer expert here in our group. How does it resonate, the method, with the way that you design, evaluate, and ensure learning transfer, for example?
Yeah, it mirrors really well. Just to make sure everyone is very, very clear on what learning transfer is. So a lot of people have been through training, they've been through learning and development initiatives. So transfer means you take what is learned in that initiative and you actually move it into your day-to-day work to improve whatever it is you were trying to do. And it really mirrors really well with what John has outlined there in Working Out Loud. You've identified a goal and you've identified people that you want to work with, and you meet regularly to improve on that side of things. You get regular feedback. He mentioned psychological safety, huge in learning transfer. There's really is a lot of parallels between what is considered to be good learning transfer and what John has outlined in Working Out Loud as well.
Yeah. If you think about your practice as a learning transfer expert, so what is the most important part for you, particularly if we look back at this year and we think about the move that was like, I assume that in your organizations, you were always already having like remote or hybrid learning concepts, but still this year, we were all sort of hit hard by the 100% go virtual, right?
Sure.
What were your learnings?
Sure. So I suppose the biggest issue that a lot of people saw this year was just having that connection. So prior to a training event, after a training event, even during a training event, it's just having that human connection to be able to actually sit down and talk to someone, or even have just a quick chat to kind of talk about how bad that was, to really reflect on how bad that experience was, because you get a lot from talking about the negatives. You get a lot from talking about the positives. So that, I think, is one area where we tripped up a little bit in the learning space. We didn't replicate the kind of office environment, that kind of water cooler. Let's grab lunch together. Let's chat this out. That's really been taken from us when everyone moved away into like an online space. But I think again, we've reflected on it, and I think we will improve. And I think going into 2021, it's one of those things that we need to improve on, because it doesn't look like we're going back to offices anytime soon. It's not going to be back on the regular anyway.
Absolutely. Pari, I saw you nodding a lot.
I know I'm nodding a lot, right? So I agree with you guys. A lot of what you said made perfect sense. But when you were talking about some of the learning challenges that I'm seeing as well with our clients and in companies, so of course there are some companies who were already in that hybrid space of online learning, but a lot still really focused on the face-to-face learning and the formal learning. And I think that has suddenly been a really big shift for them. That now, of course, that's stopped, and now suddenly they have to move to online learning. And that's been a very big challenge for people. It's sort of adapting to that. How do we learn online? It had, of course, advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are you can learn anywhere. The disadvantages are exactly that. How do we keep the interaction going, and how do we build that community? And so that's a lot of that space that I'm seeing, which I think in as we move forward, not only because of AI, not only because of what we've seen with the pandemic, but also this whole space of reskilling, what we are seeing in the future of work and the future of jobs. It's like a complete transformation and revolution of learning and how we reskill and the impact of learning. And then now taking that to this online world, I think there's so much catching up that we have to do and really create those spaces where we can have those conversations, have the impact, and really see the return on investment for learning as well.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a quote from the head of learning at Merck. Her name's Laura Kresnick, and she said the future of corporate learning is more self-directed and social. And I think it's those two combined, right? So they have LinkedIn Learning, which is great, and it's very self-directed. I could watch that or YouTube or whatever it is on my own. But what makes it kind of more meaningful, what imbues it with meaning, is what Fergal talked about, and Pari, these interactions with other people. And if you can find formats that combine the two, where the learning's intrinsically motivated, it's self-directed, but I'm doing it with other people, that to me is an ideal mix that's also scalable and can take us a long way, particularly in the current environment.
But you know what my experience is, and I'm really interested in what your experience is, or what your ideas are upon that. That self-directed learning is a concept that we use in academia and in research for many years, and it clearly shows what components or what skills people need to have to be able to self-direct their learning process. Honestly, I have the feeling, and I teach a lot in academia, and I work a lot with companies, that self-directed learning, if we're talking particularly 100% virtually in the virtual space, it is really complicated, because in our university system, neither in organizations, I have one client who asks me to train their people on how to learn. One client. Because the problem is, I have the feeling that self-directed learning skills are not as developed as they should be and need to be for the virtual space.
Huh. Just a quick response. That's 100% true. So it's very similar to my experience. What gets people, there's a reason why the massive online courses, why 96% of the people drop out, right? Like, it's very hard to learn on your own, even if it seems very accessible. So getting the structure right that Fergal and Pari were talking about is key, because it's the shared accountability and structure that carries you from week to week. So you actually make those steps until it becomes a habit. Yeah. And that's why the social and self-directed need to go together, and getting a structure that doesn't squelch intrinsic motivation, but provides enough otherness that carries you through, the kind of learning curves.
And I really liked, John, what you said about social and self-directive, because it is the combination over there. And maybe one of the things that I've noticed with the companies who have online learning platforms, you have such a lot of information at your fingertips, but people aren't using it. They're not learning that. And I hear that constantly from companies that, we send our staff, our employees on courses, we give them these opportunities, but that is not happening. The learning is not happening. So it is that component of creating the community, and a community of learners, I think, really raises that learning culture within an organization. But it's not just the learners. I think it's the entire organization who goes down that journey, and the initiatives that we put in place. And you use the word accountability, and one of the things we saw in our recently, we were talking about that with Barbara as well. We actually developed a model for learning, which is, helps people on self-directed, and maybe brings in this component where
Mm.
we support them even further with a model called our AIS model, which is accountability, impact, sustainability. So it's, how do you keep them accountability? How do you track that impact? And how do you make sure it's sustainable? It's not that, as you said, as the habits are being formed, that's how
Right.
you create sustainability. And I remember when I was trying to sell this to a client once, and I said, it's all about love. And he was like, what? And I'm like, honestly, it's all about love. So if I'm working with a learner, I hold their hand and I love them through this entire journey. What else do you want in life, right?
I've never used that in a sales pitch, but maybe.
I mean, it did make him think twice. And he's like, excuse me, what was that? So you might want to try that one.
Fero, what is your take on self-directed learning, and how do you, as learning transfer expert, help or support people or design differently to encourage self-directed learning?
So I feel to a certain extent we are all self-directed learners. And I think if you're living in the modern age, you're constantly surrounded by the internet and information. And we are learning all the time. The people listening to this, watching this, are learning right now. But the issue is, like Parry mentioned, it's the ecosystem around this self-directed learning that I'm doing. So who am I going to talk to after this to tell who I learned about, or what I learned about working out loud? Who am I going to share that with? Who's going to make me accountable to make sure that I sign up for working out loud? Who's going to make sure that I take those next steps? Who am I going to tell? Who am I going to increase other people's knowledge about this? So the self-directed element is from me. I'm a self-directed learner. The design is where we are right now. We've got four experts on the stage, excuse me, all giving you different pieces, nuggets of information. This is the design. We're in the best place. We've got a place to ask questions. We've got a place to get feedback. But it's the after. What do we do after? And it's that ecosystem of accountability, like you said, Parry, and then impact and follow through on what we do with our learning. That's really the missing component. So I totally take what you said about the self-directed elements, but it's the love part, like you said, Parry. It's the love part afterwards that kind of makes people hold your hand a little bit. Maybe not holding hands, but just taking it with that next step after learning.
And Parry, I see there are people applauding in the chat already about your love part. Do you see that? Sveta is saying, thanks for the great reminder. Importance of creating a community of learners where they practice safe, self-directed learning in small teams, tracking accountability and sustainability. And there's also another important aspect being raised. So Amelie is saying, thanks a lot for your comment. Amelie is talking about empathy, for example, also being an important part of that. But I see that love is in the air here, and that is good. That is good.
It is. It's a funny word to use, but when I think of that, it's actually also love for self, and your own learning is your love for yourself. If you take that responsibility for your learning, that's part of you taking a responsibility for your growth, for your development, and that is self-love. And a company investing in its people for their learning and development in a way is showing that empathy, is showing their care for the individuals, for their human capital. So I just relate all of that to love in a way.
Something that Fergal mentioned that we haven't really talked about yet is what do you do after?
Yeah.
And so this, how we treat learning in time, and not to make it too abstract, but my point being, most learning experiences, particularly in the workplace, are at a point in time. it's a workshop, it's an event, it's a 2-day training course, it's something. And what's missing often is the ability to apply that knowledge, get feedback, is deliberate practice, right? Over an extended period of time, not a day, not 2 days, but over weeks or even months. Typically it's too expensive or it's complicated, but that's one of the things I tried to offer, is to create a space over 12 weeks. So you're seeing the same people. It's not, I learned with Fergal, then I go to some big community, right? Or it's not, I did something and then maybe I'll get back to it in a week. It's every week for 12 weeks, same people, small steps, small steps, small steps, feedback along the way. And that at least increases the odds, right? That I will persist and that I'll start to make a dent in some new habits. What do you guys think about the timing of learning? Because for the most part, it appears workplace learning is super short term and concentrated. And I think that needs to be broken up a bit. What do you think about that?
Let me just pull in here one question that Sveta was asking at the beginning. What would be the differences of working out loud on site versus virtually? Because that's a little bit also where you're directing to, right? And just to bring in my very personal opinion. So I define myself as a virtual enthusiast, and I love working virtually and teaching and training and coaching virtually, because I believe exactly what you were saying, John, is that there is such a huge potential in creating virtual learning journeys that we usually, because probably most of the times because of economic reasons, companies don't fly me in for a learning journey over 3 months every second month to another country, right? And gather together all the people. And I believe the virtual space, and that's also why I think it's so powerful, provides you with so many possibilities to, Fergal, your topic, to talk about or to consider much more learning transfer than I was ever able, or maybe I wasn't really considering it enough in a 1-day workshop. What do you do afterwards? You come in, you go out, that's it, right. In most of the cases.
If you can preserve the magic that happens in the room, like that's the big if. And Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said, "Be careful of what's been lost."
Yeah,
and that's exactly what he was talking about, and why teams and other things they're going to try to do things to preserve that. Again, what Fergal mentioned earlier, the basic human interactions that we took for granted, but that are absent in a virtual space unless you develop a structure that facilitates that.
absolutely.
And so I agree 100% with your Barbara, with the potential, but it won't be as simple as let's just move the content. It's let's try to come up with innovative ways to have these social interactions.
Yeah, and I think that's such a critical point. It's so hard to sustain that learning after the program is done. You know, how do you keep that energy over there? How do you keep the motivation, the inspiration going? And you were talking about this, John, when you said the 12 weeks, and in a way you create this pod of a community, compatriots, whatever you want to call it, but they accompany you on this journey. And I think that is so instrumental in sustainability of learning, because you feel you're being supported. You're not alone in that journey. And I think that's definitely one of the very significant ways to create that habit of learning. My question on that is sometimes some companies, so we do that in teams. So we have team learning and feedback and sharing how we implement this and learn from one another and so forth. But it's so much, it's interesting because the intrinsic motivation is there, the time is not. And they get busy, and then priorities take place, and they have deadlines and so forth. And it becomes such a challenge to just keep that going. And that's one of the big challenges that I see in these initiatives. How do you really, the people are invested in it, the culture is there, but time is sometimes against us.
I would question, sorry, John, I would question if the culture is there if they're not being given the time to learn and to apply. I think every company should have a focus on making their employees better and improving their skills. If employee skills improve, the company improves.
Absolutely.
better ideas, better products, more innovative solutions, all sorts of things. So I think the issue of culture is definitely an issue for the learning side of things, and it's where transfer falls down. It's because the culture on the team wasn't set up for people to, like John said, to practice and to apply and to have that focused, purposive practice and actually try to get across the line the things that you were trying to do.
It reminds me a lot about an article that you wrote about culture being the basis and being super important when it comes to the learning organization, of course, Fergal, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. It's huge. It's we've been kind of touching on the topic the whole chat. It's talking about that ecosystem. So I could be the best learning designer in the world. You could be the best self-directed learners right now. Sorry, I had to read and talk at the same time.
Thank you, Anna.
But it's putting all those things. It's putting all those things together in the culture of a company, which is what makes learning really stick. The learning design on its own won't make people learn and won't make people apply. Self-directed learners on their own will do their very best, but they will often fall down in the transfer side of things. But it's getting everything working together: the design, the culture, the learners. Putting that all together into an ecosystem is what truly translates learning into improved performance.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Also, it is exactly what Gemma is posting there, Parry. Let me just drag that in. Learning doesn't happen by accident. It is effortful and it needs to be designed. And also, I think just to pick up on that, what you were saying, Fergal, now about the ecosystem, and also we had a few comments about the ecosystem there. Absolutely. I think and we talked about that with Melanie Martinelli, one of my learning gurus as well. I love to follow her on LinkedIn. She's from the Learning Gym. And we had a LinkedIn Live and we were talking a lot about how we make the transfer happen afterwards, particularly. So how to involve, for example, managers, teams, colleagues after the learning has occurred and what do you do afterwards. So also like this follow-up step. Sorry, Parry, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to pick up on Fergal's point about the ecosystem and how important the culture is. And I really think if that doesn't exist, it is so hard to create, and I think learners really aren't given the opportunity. But when I mentioned time, it wasn't so much that the company was not investing and not providing time. It was actually that the employees had so much to do that they didn't have 24 hours in the day.
Right.
They were very, very busy. They wanted to learn, but they just didn't have the time. And they were so exhausted by the end of the day that then they didn't want to, they just needed to shut off. And that was a challenge that, in a time like that, if your work is so chaotic and so busy, it doesn't, even if you have the right environment and the right leadership supporting that, it's not going to happen.
So that's interesting because I've certainly come across that. Everyone's busy. And if you give them one more thing to do, so we're talking about self-directed learning, but please do not give me another thing to learn on top of a busy day. And so a balance we strike, and I wonder what you think of it, is in the beginning, there were early adopters who they'll learn on their own and they're curious about the next thing. But at some point, if you want to scale, and Bosch, for example, has 5,000 people in Working Out Loud circles, what they did is they plugged it into existing programs like onboarding and talent development, etc., culture program, digital transformation. What that did, they didn't force people to do it, but what it did is it said, we already have a space and a time for you to practice. So all you have to do is raise your hand, and then it's part of orientation. It's part of the talent program. It's already in my calendar. And my point being, there's this kind of art, back to designing learning. There's this art about you give people space and freedom so that they can pursue self-directed learning, and you create structures that make it easier, that facilitate a decision. It's almost like choice architecture, that facilitate them making decisions to invest the time because you've created that structure that makes it easy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think what you're talking that's an amazing example you've given. They've really built the transfer into the onboarding. And I think if we were to if you go through onboarding with no transfer, and then suddenly you've got this new learning program with a transfer phase, that's exhausting. That's totally new, and that's cognitively overwhelming for me. You've already just given me all this new information, and now I have to go and do all these things with it. I'm exhausted now, and I'll get all my other work to do. But if you can kind of build that into your onboarding programs, like, this is expected. This is how we work here.
Right.
This is just us being us, and you learn, you apply, you learn, you apply, you learn, you apply. So that's a really good example, John. Thank you for that.
And you know what fits in here perfectly? So Thomas is saying, I like the concept of learn and tell used by startups. Basically, once a week, someone tells something they have learned to the rest of the team. And I think that's a perfect example that we implemented years ago in my team at the university I was working at. And it's such a small practice that after each training that I or anyone attended, in the next team meeting, we sort of told the others about what the major learnings were, and we shared the materials, blah, blah, blah. But sharing the materials didn't really help because nobody looks into that. But the moment that I started talking at it and I needed to summarize it for 7 minutes, a day training or something, then I learned, the others learned, and it's so powerful. But that also means we need much more accountability, not only from the learners, but also from the managers, from the whole team itself, right? What you were saying, Pari.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It comes back at the end, as you know, in Fergal's words, of this ecosystem and the culture. It has to work hand in hand together. So it is investing the time, it is having the time, it's creating that space for learners to learn and also to share what they've learned, and for management to acknowledge that. And I think that, the words of reward and acknowledge are also important, because that's also motivating. It's also seen as growth and how a person is appreciated for learning and developing that learning culture. I think that accountability and acknowledgement is also important there.
Absolutely. Summarizing what Gemma is saying, the learning transfer should be part of the plan from the beginning on. But I think also it's not even only part of the plan. It's like really, as Fergal was saying, it's part of the culture, isn't it? Because if I sort of delegate it to the trainer, tell your participants they need to go back to their teams. No, it should be probably part of the culture, that it's natural that people, when they come back from a training, they are telling and talking about what they learned with the others. Is that something that is also part of working out loud as a philosophy, John? Just to understand that maybe a little bit better.
The themes we've talked about, yes. So a big throughout the 12 weeks, you make a variety of contributions. Some of that is making your work visible. So week 9, there's a dinner table university where you share what you learned. And so people are practicing this idea of reflecting, writing it down, sharing it with others. So yes to all of that. Why people then, like what they do after, has nothing to do with the exercises that I wrote necessarily. It's a feeling that makes it sustainable. So it's not like they took an agile course and now they want to keep practicing agile. It's that they've tapped into some sense of confidence, or I have something to contribute, or I matter, right? Like I deserve recognition. It's this idea that that happens in signals with other people over the 12 weeks, makes them feel better. That's what makes them tell their friends. So when you said you heard about working out loud at conferences, I wasn't there. I didn't even know those conferences happened. It's just, but people felt good enough that A, they wanted to practice more themselves, and B, they wanted to tell somebody else about it. And I think that's part of the ecosystem, so to speak. That's part of what makes it sustainable, is that you're working on making people feel a certain way, not just remember a certain fact or a bit of content.
Yeah, it's that sense of achievement. It's that kind of intrinsic, I feel good, I've learned, I've applied, I'm now better, and I know that I've improved on whatever skill I was trying to improve. I know I have to tell someone, and I'll go back and I'll do another working out loud group.
Yeah.
Thinks really well with the musical theme that you've got going on, Barbara. Like, music makes us feel good. Music helps us to learn. So does a sense of achievement help us to feel good. Improves those. I'm not sure what the neurotransmitters are called exactly, but everything is charging in our brain, and this feels good. I want to do this again and again and again.
That's probably a perfect connection to, we have the music that makes us feel good, and then we have your love topic that is also connecting emotions with the learning, right?
Yes, yes. And you know, hearing both of you, Fergal and John, talking about the feeling and the feel good and the sense of achievement, it actually reminded me of when I learned best. And you know, what I took away from a learning, where I felt a high impact from learning. And it was one, putting myself very much out of my comfort zone, learning something completely. So it's not only, so I guess that comes back to the self-directive, not necessarily the formal, but what you just have a passion for, you learn. And it's exactly that. It's how you feel about it. So out of a learning, I might come and say, you know, just have one short sentence that I connected with this person, or we shared something. You know, we shared a way we thought, we shared a way we process things, we analyze things, and that's enough of a takeaway. So I think that that is so significant in how you feel after that, and what you do with that, and how you transfer that and share that. So it's all about love, you see. I tell you, at the end of the day, it's all about love.
Well,
We're coming to that, right?
just to love for your, like you said, love for yourself. Love for yourself is also acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Like acceptance that I don't know this, or I'm not as good as I would like to be at this, at least not yet. The acceptance that you could take a step and it doesn't go the way you want. So so what makes it easier to love yourself, really, is back to social, is that you've got a few people in a psychologically safe space that kind of have your back, or that won't judge you, or that encourage you. It this isn't touchy feely. This isn't just to be nice, although that's good. It just makes it more effective. It makes for a more effective learning experience if you create these safe pods that have encouraging, supportive people that can lift you up when you fall down. And that's part of love, I guess.
Definitely. Look there. Dieter was asking how to treat the 2,250 different employees, and then he immediately got the conclusion there, love them, right? If I understand that
Oh,
correctly.
Dieter, fantastic. You're going to have to tell us how you do it, Dieter.
And Sweta is just, thanks so much for your comments. Yeah, start with love 2021 and move to 2,250. Fantastic.
I have to tell you something. I have to share this with you. I know it's a bit out there, but today I wrote a poem. I haven't written a poem for many, many years. And I have to tell you what it's called. Try to guess.
Ah.
My poem. John. And I'm not sure I'm going to share it with everyone, maybe just you guys, but it's actually called All About Love. Believe it or not. I will share it with you guys later.
And next week we're going to see Pari going viral on LinkedIn with her love story, right?
Tap dancing with my love story, maybe. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to guess love in the workplace, but that might have been misleading. Yes.
Oh dear. It's the end of year, you know. We get a bit soft.
Guys, we are already coming to an end, so time was flying. I'm going to start now, but Pari, I think, well, you are becoming a hit. Your love idea is becoming a hit. Everybody is citing you now. Everybody starts to quote you. Go for that. Go for that.
I think we've had such a hard 2020. We have to end on a high with love, you know?
Absolutely.
What if we go with the last round of questions? And now I'm going to take, well, questions. A last round that I take the question for each of you. Is that okay with you? And of course, I encourage all of you out there, if there is still a question from you, be fast, type it in, and I pick that out. Otherwise, I go with my question now. Well, that's like, everybody's like, dear God, I need to be fast now. Well, there was one question about working out loud, and in the chat as well from one of our participants. And I was wondering, John, because I know that you implement, or HR people implement working out loud in the organization, but is it also possible for me as an individual, for example, to join one of your working out loud, or one working out loud circle that goes virtual somewhere, or that is happening virtually?
Absolutely. Tens of thousands of people have done that in 65 countries. So the guides are free. They're on the website. They were coming in 6 languages. And then what typically happens is people join with strangers by video, usually across city or country. And the diversity makes it a safe place. So the short answer is yes. And then what happens sometime, and the way it's spread, is that some of those people go back to their workplace and say, hey, I think we need this. I think this could help us collaborate. I think this could help us deal with virtual work. I think this could help us cross silos. And then that's how it takes root, the grassroots form and spread inside a company.
Oh, fantastic.
Barbara, can I say something as well on that? Because I actually signed up for Working Out Loud. I went on John's website. I was curious. So I'm going to meet John Stepper.
Now I'm nervous. Yes.
I might as well go on the website and see, what do I do with this Working Out Loud? So I joined a Working Out Loud pod, and I also created my own. And I set up my time, and it's virtual, and I'm just going to wait and see who joins me on that. So it's fantastic, John. Really, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to my next 12 weeks of learning. I'll tell them all about love,
Yes, thank you.
You're going to get 1 million subscribers right now.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to join the group.
Inshallah, yes.
You need to share which one you are so that they can join yours, because that's going to be crowded now.
No, I'm going to promote that afterwards. Don't worry.
I should make a pod going all about love. I mean, that's a really good one.
Yes, you'll get some attention for sure. Yes.
Pari, let me ask you also a question for you. So you are joining the Working Out Loud. What is your reflection on learning? Because this year, I think, as learning experts, we have been dealing with many challenges in learning generally in organizations, but this year it was a little bit harder. How did you experience it, and what was your takeaway for 2021? Besides love,
besides love, okay. Besides love, my personal or as in a professional capacity?
Maybe both. Come on.
Okay. Professionally, as providing this service to our clients, I was amazed at how many clients actually signed up to the online space. Absolutely, it was really interesting for me that, and I'm talking about a number of companies who did not have that space before, or it was limited, and how fast they adapted to that. They saw the need for it. I think it was also seen as a need to motivate their employees, especially during this very challenging year. So it gave them an additional incentive. That was very interesting. What we introduced in terms of this UNEPA learning and our AIS model has done extremely well. And we're very excited about working with clients on that basis as we move forward. My personal learning, I think I started this very nice learning journey 1 or 2 years ago, where I thought, just go and see what's out there and be as open to the world and universe. And somehow Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss, and the universe opens doors for you. I think I said learning, and I just got hit by like a whole load of stuff coming to me. And it was phenomenal. I'm just on such a high over it. And by being open to it, there's so many resources out there. There's so many things that we can learn from. There's so many things we can learn from. Sitting here, when I go to my hairdresser, just observing the people, the dynamics, the interactions, I'm learning something over there. You have podcasts and TED Talks and so many different apps out there that you can learn. It's just so exciting. So I'm in a good space. I'm in a good learning space.
Fantastic. Fergal, well, you are our learning transfer expert here, and I'd love to know what is your takeaway, particularly if we think about learning transfer and 100% virtual learning environment. I know that we had a comment, I think it was Dieter who commented, shouldn't we do a blend, a hybrid thing about analog and virtual? That, of course, we know from research, if we have sort of an analog session, an in-presence setting, and then a virtual, then maybe again an in-presence or something like that, it works super well. But But what do we do now? We know that we will probably continue at least for another half a year virtually. So what is your take on learning transfer, particularly when it comes to the virtual space? And I must say, I loved your article about the action planning, because I think that's also, it's a very small aspect that sometimes we as trainers or we as university professors, we forget it at the end of the training, right?
Sure. And action planning, it's such a simple thing to put in place. You can create it using 3 simple questions, probably very similar to the 3 kind of questions that John would ask in a Working Out Loud group. For me, my reflections on 2020 and moving into 21 and how we can do things a lot better. Yes, we will be in a virtual world, but I think how we analyze our learning issues is what remains the key issue. I think if we just transfer all of our PowerPoints into an e-learning, that won't get us much further than we were doing last year. I think how we analyze what we design is what's going to give us the biggest wins. What are the business issues that we're trying to fix? What are the business goals that we're trying to meet by designing virtual learning? And what are those metrics? How are those metrics going to move by creating a virtual learning space? I think that yes, the mode will probably have to be virtual learning, but it's that analysis that happens beforehand, which is going to make the virtual learning even more effective, because we can say that yes, we're solving this goal. And if we can't say we're solving a business goal, then we've got buy-in at all different levels of the company, from the users, from the learners on the ground floor to like senior management buy-in. I think if we can start doing that for everything, for every learning that we design, I think we'll be in a much better place for the transfer phase. So before part, the after part, I think is really the most important for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just pick up what Gemma is saying, that the action plan is the beginning of the accountability process. Love it, Fergal. So thanks a lot. Yes, absolutely agree. And you know, when I'm reflecting on my learning this year, I think I'm a really bad online learner in terms of consistency and staying on a course. And well, my Udemy or my Coursera performance is really bad, I must say. Unfortunately, the only one consistent learning, weekly super learning that I have, I love my LinkedIn lives, because my LinkedIn lives are the super learning for me, honestly, the whole year. And I'm so grateful, dear LinkedIn, that you approved my LinkedIn live stream solicitude, like, how do you say, dear God, my LinkedIn live thing already so early, application, thanks a lot, dear God, Spanish coming in, that you approved that so early, because it helped me tremendously this year. Not only learning, because I have tremendous experts as you in my show, but also the connections and the interconnections and the connectedness that we are feeling. For me this year was amazing. So thanks a lot. And we're getting a few thanks already from outside. Thanks for joining us. And you know, before we finish, we are still, and you also, you guys are getting, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting our DJ who is coming back on stage, so that you can smoothly also the last 15 seconds here, while I'm saying goodbye to all of you, the DJ is going to put on some music, I assume, correct? We hear it coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much, John. Thank you very much for joining.
And music is love. Perfect. I love it. I love it, DJ.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a good year.
Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye, John.
2021 is going to be great.
Bye, Fergal. Thank you very much again.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And Pari, a big love, of course, to you. Thanks a lot for your contribution.
Thank you. Have a blessed.
Oops, sorry, that was a little bit too fast. Well, see you. Thank you very much, and stay connected, because next week we're going to talk again about learning design, virtual learning design, with Matthew Richter from the Tyagi Group. And this is going to happen on Tuesday. Well, I'm now in the last month, I'm changing a little bit the days and testing out where more people are connecting, but stay connected there. Next week, we won't have the DJ, but he's coming back in 2021. So with that, I ask you to enjoy the music. Some music from our DJ, you know, it's good maybe to reflect and digest a little bit what we were talking about. Stay with the DJ Virtual Space here. Thank you so much for joining, and see you next Tuesday in the next Virtual Space Hero LinkedIn Live. Matthew Richter from the Tyagi Group. Bye.